Ciao from Vietnam. This is Matt Javit, world traveler, discussing culture with Chris Smit.
Good morning, Matt. No, it's not good morning where you are. It's not even good morning where I am. So this we need to clear that up first. So you're on the show here, podcast number 101, and it's going to be a one-on-one with you, Matt Javit. Tell us a little bit about where you are. What's that yellow light behind you? Because this is something really, listeners, you got to check this out on the video cast as well. It is a divine picture, literally a divine picture from Matt that we can see as well. There's a nice echo in the audio as well, but the light, that just, you know, it makes it perfect. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what is your cultural frame of reference, as I always call it, and where are you now? It's a long introduction question, so take all the time you need.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, I'm talking to you from a co-work space in Da Nang, Vietnam. Mm-hmm. It's a cool little spot that I found here in town. And I guess the quick nugget is my wife and I left our careers back in February of 2017 to travel full time. We were based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and we made that decision after a lot of thought and conversations, and then we ended up taking the leap. Prior to that, a little bit about my background leading up to that point. I grew up a military child in the United States. So we were mostly in the East Coast, in the Midwest. I ended up going to 3 different high schools, and I've lived in 10 different states, and a lot of that was in the Midwest. The high schools was kind of a weird deal, just how we jumped around. But and I also played college basketball. I'm 2 meters, I think is the height in your language, 6'6" in the United States. And I played basketball throughout my life. And so when it comes to culturally, through my adolescent years, because I was a good athlete, a lot of doors were opened rather quickly for me. Every time that we moved to a new school, I made friends rather quickly, and the adjustments were not that difficult for me. And it was wonderful because I got to meet a lot of different types of people. Obviously, being in the military, I had very young parents. My parents started they had my brother when my mom was 16, and they had me when my mom was 19. So we had very young parents, and so they were strapped with cash. They didn't have anything. So growing up, I had a chance to see a different level of culture in the United States, growing up around different people. Right. And then obviously basketball gave me an avenue to talk to a lot of different athletes in the different cities that we lived. And then as luck may have it, when I was going through the high school changes, I went to one high school in a city called Youngstown, Ohio, and then I had to move because my dad was transferred to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We went up there and went to a small town, like a little country town. I was there my sophomore year, and then my junior and senior year, we moved into the city of Milwaukee on the north side. And that high school really changed a way that I saw a lot of things in life, because it was pretty affluent. There was a big mix of people, and it's rather interesting because it was just on yesterday on BBC on television. They were talking about the 50-year anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination. Yes. And they went back to the U.S. and they actually went back to Milwaukee to talk to the people of Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is the most segregated city in the United States. Okay. And it was
at
the
this
same
moment in time you're talking about.
At this moment, right in 2018 it is, but when I lived there, it was the same. It hasn't changed. It really hasn't changed. When I lived there, it was either 1 or 2. Boston is also extremely segregated, but Milwaukee was either 1 or 2 at that time as well, which is extremely interesting because, like I said, we lived on the north side in an affluent neighborhood, but there's I guess you could call it like a busing system where they would bring kids from the inner city out to the different suburban schools to have a mixed cultural experience. Yeah. But because I played basketball and a lot of my kids were from urban America, I spent a lot of my time in the deep inner cities where I would go into basketball games and I would be the only white kid with over 200 black kids in a gym. And that's just the way that I grew up in it. I was never intimidated. I don't know if it's because of the people that I hung around with, I guess the the swagger that they had and the influence they had in their own neighborhoods, that when they brought me in, nobody messed with me. But I've always been open to that psychologically. Like, not that, I mean, saying that we're all equal is so cliche, but that mentality of that we all have similar likes and dislikes, and just kind of breaking through that rather quickly. So I think I was kind of, some of it was based on the fact that we moved so much and I had to adjust so quickly and be around certain people all the time. And then through life, as I got through basketball and I got scholarships and I played, and then obviously the university gave me a totally different setting. So then I got to experience other people from their backgrounds and get to mix with kids that maybe came a little bit more privileged in a way. And I have those experiences. And then when I got my MBA, I was actually coaching basketball. So at that point, in my early 20s, coaching, I would go into the deep South and recruit kids and go into their homes and recruit their family. Like, if you ever been to like the deep parts of or deep parts of Louisiana, where it is extremely different culture, and because America in itself is there's just all the different parts of America are different in themselves. So I had the ability to do all these things up into my early 20s. As I started to do like more of a corporate life, because so after I coached college basketball, I started a clothing line with my brother. I moved back to Indianapolis. I had my MBA, went back to Indianapolis, and I bartended at night, and I did my clothing line during the day. And so that you get to meet people in the bar, and that's an amazing experience. And then my now wife walked into the bar. I fell in love instantly. Asked her within 8 months to marry me. And in part of that process, her father, who came from a bar family, basically said, hey, buddy, it probably makes more sense if you don't remain in the bar business when you're married to my wife. And I absolutely agreed with him. So then I transitioned into the financial world, got a job there, and then I was in corporate America, and those began to take on different skills. You meet different people, and then I was in Las Vegas for a year and a half, about a little over a year, 14 months. So that helped me work on things, and then I got placed into the tech. So then the recession hit, housing bubble.
Okay, so sorry, just to get the timeline, and this you were talking about 2007, 2008. At this moment?
2007. Yeah, 2007. So I was lucky enough at as I transitioned out of Las Vegas and came back to Indianapolis, because my wife was working on her doctorate at Butler in pharmacy. So as she was, so we couldn't live together at that time. So we were doing this kind of bi-city thing where she would fly and see me every 6 weeks or so. So I came back to Indianapolis, and thank God the technology company. I had no technology skills, zero, none. I didn't know anything about anything, and but they thought I could sell. So I brought in this skill set of selling, and they hired me. And then to be inserted into, and I ended up staying with that company for 9 years, and had a great, a very fun track of a success in that company. But to be able to be inserted in that, and then during that process, not only was I surrounded by people from all different walks of life, really strong Indian community within technology, obviously, and then the folks that I was talking to on a regular basis when it comes to programmers and people that I'd never been around before, because the programmer mentality is totally different than my skill set of selling, an entrepreneur, and those things. So to be able to have lunches with these guys and have drinks with these guys and just hang out with them and get to know them, it was just such a fun ride for me. Because I saw myself, and I described it many times. I was essentially an agent for technology talent. So I would, as an agent was trying to get an athlete a position on a team, I was trying to find positions for my technology talent, because I was in the services side of it. I was trying to find opportunities for my talented programmers or project managers or SQL developer, whatever it is that those guys are out helping to get those guys positions. And then at the same time, I was selling it at the C-suite level. So I was going into these doors of guys that were making high six figures or $1 million a year, and to be able to have those conversations and have dinners with those guys, just the progression of my professional career with the mix of my upbringing has just been an unbelievable journey. And so I guess that brings you to the point where we are today, where during my success in in my company, I had the opportunity for 5 straight years. I won the sales incentive trip. Because I'm part of an international company, we went to really cool locations. We're companies based out of Paris, France, but our sales incentive trips would be in places like, for instance, we went to Goa, India, in Chiang Mai, Thailand,
Right.
in Cape Town, South Africa. And so we had the chance to go to these awesome places. And those travel experiences, to go into those cultures and then come home, mind blowing to me. And
That created that made you like an enlightened American.
it changed me to not be able to do that into my mid 30s. It was unbelievable, and I'm thankful that I did it later in life, because I'm not sure I would have appreciated it as much if I would have backpacked in my early 20s. But it just changed me. It absolutely changed the way I looked at things. I came back invigorated every time, full of energy, and I was just so ready to go on the next trip.
Right.
So through this process of traveling, and then also going on personal vacations to like Croatia and Greece and Brazil and Argentina and places, Panama, places around the world, my wife.
And then we lost the connection at 11 minutes. You're back.
I continued on. I'm not sure if you.
Yeah, no, you were, yeah. So I'm going to cut this out. That little bit of there's like a 20-second break. So you came back reinvigorated, ready for the next trip, and you went on private trips to Croatia, Brazil, etc. That's where I lost you.
Okay, yeah. So we would go on. Not only would we go on the sales incentive trips, but we would go on our own personal vacations from time to time to Brazil or Argentina, Panama, Greece, Croatia, different places around the world. And every time we would come back, I was super excited to figure out, okay, where's the next place?
Yes.
Where's the next opportunity to see what else is out there? So through this process, my wife and I, we would continue to just have these discussions, have these dreams of, hey, someday we will just leave it all behind and go travel the world.
Can I ask Matt? Can I just interrupt you here? Just out of curiosity as well. Your wife, her name is Nikki, right? And you're on this journey together.
Absolutely.
So you went initially. You went on these sales incentive trips, and they sort of, I always call it an enlightened American. An American that goes outside of his country, and experiences more than the all-inclusive resorts in Cancun, for example.
Absolutely.
So was she on board straight away? Did she have the same kind of experience, or did you have to sell it to her in a kind way, of course?
No, she was all on board. She grew up in a different upbringing than I did. She had the opportunity. She went to the Caribbean a bunch as a kid. She got to see some things in different places and traveling. I didn't travel internationally until I was in my mid 30s. But the very first trip we went on was to Istanbul, Turkey, and it happened on a whim. Within probably 4 weeks, we had to make the decision and end up traveling. But I remember calling her at work, and because she works as a sales guy, I've got flexibility in my schedule as long as I can get some connectivity. I can continue to work. Yeah. But her being a clinical pharmacist within a hospital, she doesn't have that flexibility. So last minute vacations and time off is extremely difficult. But I called her and I said, babe, we've got a chance to go to Istanbul, Turkey. And at this point, I called her in February. We were going to March. I said, these are the dates. We've got to make this happen. Can you make this happen? And sure enough, she worked with her bosses because she wanted to go so bad. And she got the time off and people covered for her. And we were on that trip. And we would both come back the same way. We're both pretty adventurous. Not to extremes, but we both like to have a lot of fun and interact with a lot of people on our journey. So, and that's probably why we get along so well as well. Because I like to do some. I like to just kind of stretch myself a lot when it comes culturally to meet new people and talk people. And she laughs at me a lot, but for the most part, she's definitely on board.
So now, so you're very successful, and in your introduction, you are a very successful. What is it? 5 times, 6 times, 7 times award-winning? 9 times? No, 9 years you spent at this technology company. 5 times sales winner.
Yeah. It took me, those first couple of years were definitely a learning process, but once I got in the groove, it took off. But so 5-time international award winner, and my wife's like I said, a clinical pharmacist at one of the top university hospitals in America.
And then you get these incentive trips, and then you're being sent out, and you're being entertained, etc. You come back all like pumped up and energized, etc. your wife is on board with this as well, and you have these discussions, and eventually you got to pull the trigger. Eventually, you're going to say, "We're going to go then." So
Yeah,
how do you? I mean, you must have told this story many times,
that's fine.
and so how does that? How do you do that?
So the moment it happened, it was pretty clear. We had talked about it for a while, and it's one of those things that the timing will never be right, and
Yeah.
especially in sales, there's always a big deal waiting to happen. So that means there's a lot of commissions to be earned. So the timing is never going to be good.
Yeah.
And we were actually in Cape Town on the final sales incentive trip that I was on, and we met this couple from the Netherlands.
Okay.
And they told us the story over drinks. There's probably about 8 of us there. They were telling us the story over drinks about how they had taken I think it was a Land Rover, a Land Cruiser, and they drove from the Netherlands to South Korea.
South Korea.
Yes, they drove the whole way across. I think it was South Korea. It was definitely
Jeez, well, that's a long
Southeast
way.
Asia.
Yeah.
Then they shipped it. They shipped their vehicle to Vancouver, Canada, and then drove to Patagonia, Chile.
Okay.
Bananas. It was a 2-year expedition for them, and just to hear them talk about it and the journey they had and all the stories they had. And they were younger than us. They were in their late 20s or early 30s. And we went back to the room that night, and I just said, "Look, what other signs do we need? Like, we've been talking about it for a long time. They did it. It's possible." And this guy actually, because he was a high performer, obviously, he had worked his career, saved up money, went on his 2 years, and then came back and got a similar job with our same company. So that was part of the conversation. Is we don't have anything to risk really, because we know we have skills and talent that is marketable.
Yeah,
so
that won't go away even if you go and travel.
Yeah, it'll actually hopefully intensify. So we had those conversations, and then flight home, we're excited, we're talking about it, and then fast forward about 6 or 8 weeks. I came downstairs and told her that I booked a one-way flight to Santiago, Chile.
One-way flight?
Yeah, to Santiago, Chile.
That's daring.
We were going to do it. And it's just like anything, like those things can come and go, and you don't really have to stay committed. But then about 2 months after that, I came down and told her that I had booked a flight from Ecuador to Portugal that was going to get us in Europe. Because the whole idea of our travel, and as we talked about, is we just wanted to follow the sun, because to be summer all throughout our travels, because it's easier to pack. You don't have to worry about certain equipment. But yeah, that was the start of it. And that's how the journey began.
Was that then a conscious decision? If you buy a one-way ticket, then that means you're not coming back. But then in the back of your mind, you say, I have marketable skills. So if push comes to shove, if I really need to, I can always come back. So was it then already the initial idea when you booked that one-way ticket to Chile to stay away, like forever?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No. We love where we're, and that's the other caveat too. Like we've met other travelers on the road, folks that are doing similar things to us, or they're leaving for 10 months or something. Yeah. That they hated their lives at home. Like they're like, oh, it was such a grind and the 9 to 5. That wasn't what we were living. We were living an amazing life around friends and family. We were in volunteer efforts, very much in the community. We love, I'm a big fan of Indianapolis, the city we live in. Nikki's family's in Chicago, so we're not far from them. And we loved it. It was more of, we knew that we wanted to travel for an extended period of time, for 2 to 2.5 years. So we knew that we would go one way to one continent, a one-way ticket to the next continent, and do that travel around the world that way. And then eventually come back. In this case, we're coming back in May of 2019. And then the idea was to basically just circle the globe with a bunch of one-way flights, and then come back at the end of the journey, ready to tackle whatever's waiting for us in the States.
Is that something you're looking? Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it wasn't like something where we were saying like, hey, we're going to get out of here and never look back. It was more of, hey, let's pause our lives a little bit and let's go take on this adventure that we've been talking about. We know that's going to be a blast when we do it.
Is that potentially in the cards though, that you might actually not come back, or is that something you're anticipating? I'm thinking out loud here because I'm making up the questions as I go along. Suppose you're coming back and you set ground in Indianapolis. Is there a chance that you think like, no, I'm going to book a one-way ticket again out of here?
No, it's we because of everything that we have back home with our amazing families and friends, I can't see the possibility of us not living there. Now, it could be part-time, like if we fall in love, first of all, we have to create income in a different way that we could do something online full-time or something like that. We'd have to create that, or if we had like a creative, if we became publishers of some sort of books or something like that, we'd have to create a revenue stream in some capacity. But I could see us potentially living elsewhere parts of the year. If we spend our summers in the States and then we travel to other parts of the world during our winter, I could see that.
Right.
But we would definitely always be. We've got nieces and nephews. I miss my brother like crazy.
Okay.
Nikki's got sisters. I mean, we've got a lot of family that we're close to.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. You're because that was another question indeed on my mind, and I think maybe the listeners are also thinking about this. You know, how do you survive? Are you living on savings, or do you make money here on the side? Because you're quite active online as well. PassportJoy.com is your storefront, if I may say. Or your travel company, a company in terms of international, because you do a podcast with that as well. So tell us if you're willing to do that, how do you cover expenses here?
Yeah, so it's all savings.
Okay.
We're not earning anything online. I mean, in a perfect world, there's ways to create income from what we've built. But it's not sustainable at this point. I mean, there's not enough revenue coming in. So this is all the hard work we've done in our careers, saving up pinching pennies to make the trip.
Right, and then so I didn't write that down. You're not a serial entrepreneur. I need to pull that up with you guys because there's something about what you. I'd try to look it up on the website.
Digital nomad?
Yeah, something like that. But also, you're a creative something, but then your wife. I mean, that sounds so horrible to say. Your wife has a real education. I don't mean it like that, Matt.
No.
But she is an expert, and she's a pharmacist.
She's got a doctor.
She's got exactly. Is
that
something that is marketable or internationally, or because you on your website you mentioned you also do volunteer work? So, does her education help in that, or how does that work?
So her education helps us deepen relationships with people because she has a knowledge in the medical field, and so when she gets in close personal conversations, especially with some of the older community that have questions about medications they're on and things like that, she can help them, and she does, and she's great at it. She's great at it based on her background. But when it comes to the things that we're doing on the road, the volunteer part of it that's really to keep our costs down. Like we volunteered through a website called Workaway, where we've actually worked at like bed and breakfasts in different places around the world. We volunteer our time and some of its physical skills to help greet people at the door, make beds, clean bathrooms, stuff like that. That helps us keep our budget in line because our budget kind of peaks and ebbs and flows through the process. Obviously, we're going to go into Europe this summer, and it's going to be expensive. But when we're here in Vietnam, we can keep our costs down. So as we're doing that, we try to do creative things in order to keep the costs down. But then we also do some of the volunteer stuff that we do. We give back in ways to some of the children as we go within orphanages and stuff like that. And I use sports as that avenue to get connected that way. Because the connections, especially when you're talking about some of these volunteer efforts, you can get connected with the local people extremely fast. And then through those connections, the doors that open really helps you understand what's going on in these communities. Because that's been that's the thing we want to do. Yeah, we've seen Machu Picchu, we went to Galapagos Islands, we've seen all these amazing sightseeing places. Taj Mahal. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the wedding we went to in Hyderabad, India. I mean, it's those types of things and those relationships that you form that when we flash back in 20 years, those will be the things that stick out to us. So the more relationships we can build and the deeper we can get into the cultures, the door is really open for us.
How do you do that? On your website, I found a picture where you're holding, you're juggling a pizza. You're making a pizza or baking a pizza, and there's a subscript that says "Understanding Local Cultures." How do you get out of this the Galapagos Island and Machu Picchu, and how do you guys connect to the local people? How do you do that?
Well, I've never been scared to ask a lot of questions
Uh-huh.
and put myself out there, and even I don't know, not it's. I've never been nervous to ask somebody to, hey, can you help me do this because I'm trying to get X?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the places and people that we've met is as we do research and we look forward, whether I'm using my my LinkedIn connections or Facebooks through certain friends, I'm not afraid to stay with somebody that is a friend of a friend of a friend. As long as I know that the chain between is trustworthy,
Yeah.
to put us in a situation where we stayed with these grandparents. I call them grandparents because they were the parents of the parents of one of my VPs in my old company.
Okay.
We stayed with them in Indore, India, which is in the center of India, where
yeah.
basically no Americans go to unless you're in some industry trying to sell something.
Yeah.
But we were there in the heart of it. I mean, when I hugged her when we were leaving, it was like I was hugging my grandma. It was such a great feeling. And there was the only reason that we connected was because I had the courage to reach out to all my Indian friends and say, hey, we're traveling. I want to meet your families.
Yeah.
And so they started asking their families, like, hey, can anybody take this couple in? This is kind of what they're doing. And then a few people started raising their hands. And that sure enough, we changed our plans to go to these cities to visit with these people. But those are the things that'll stand out. So I've never been scared. I've used websites. If I do research and I just find somebody that I think we have interest with, I found a buddy now. I call my buddy because I've seen him twice now in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. He's a cryptocurrency expert. The guy is awesome. But I basically found him on a website and I just reached out to him and said, hey man, we have a lot of the same interests. Do you mind if we can we connect?
Yeah.
And he's okay, cool, come on in. And we end up grabbing coffee, and then now we're friends. So I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that as well. I mean if you don't ask, you don't get.
Absolutely.
So, and then if you ask politely in a normal way and don't, and then I think you start with a no, you can only walk away with a no.
That's the worst thing that can ever happen.
That's the worst thing that can happen. Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys have been out here now or out there now for a year, a little over a year now, right?
Yeah, about 14 months.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's about a little bit more than a year to go, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then is there any, along the trips that you've made so far, has there ever been a location that you considered like, maybe we stick around here longer, or maybe we should write this down, as if we retire or at a moment, is there a favorite place?
I think we're in it. Honestly, I think Da
You're in
Nang,
Vietnam at this moment.
Yeah, we're in Da Nang, Vietnam, and we came back here because we spent three days here in December, and then we went to South Africa for 3 months, and I had a buddy that was in the Philippines, so we said, hey, let's connect in Saigon because we weren't going to go to the Philippines because it was too expensive. So we said, let's connect in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. So we connected with him for 4 days. And then the cheapest flight to get to Europe was through Hong Kong.
Right.
And Da Nang was an easy flight. We could easily fly here to get back here. So we were like, absolutely, let's do it. So we're going to spend 10 days here now. We just love it. I mean, Vietnam is a culture that is trying really hard to advance, and the economy is booming right now. They're building like crazy. And the people, from a hospitality mentality, they're trying really hard to get better. So they're working on their English. They're doing the best they can to advance. Their infrastructure, as far as the roads go, is really strong. I'm Skyping with you, so they've got a good a Wi-Fi network. Where we have not seen this everywhere. We've gone to places around the world that it's horrible.
I can imagine.
So they basically had everything that you'd want from a luxury standpoint. And they're in growth mode, so it's interesting to see where they'll go in the next 5 to 10 years, because they've got it's just a beautiful location. We're on the beach, and it's a great location for Koreans, the Japanese, and the Chinese to come here. But you do see Westerners as well walking the streets and in the cafes doing digital work. So it's a lot of fun. We really enjoyed here.
Cool. It's if I look at you, because I'm looking at you, we're videotaping this as well. You're wearing a T-shirt and a shirt, and we're talking Vietnam. We're recording this in April 2018. Is it cold?
No, so I was trying to look more professional, and I only have like 6 shirts total.
Right.
So you're seeing 2 of them.
Okay.
But yeah, this is as professional as I can get
Okay.
from my suit and tie days.
It
Yeah,
looks it looks perfect. It looks perfect.
yeah,
Next on your agenda is Europe. You said summer in Europe.
yeah, yeah. So we're gonna go spend 10 days in Hong Kong,
Uh-huh.
which we cannot wait for that. And yeah, then we're going to jump around Europe a little bit. We've got some friends coming in from the States.
Hmm.
I've got contacts based on my company that was international companies. We get to see some friendly faces there and take on some cool events. We're going to Isle of Man
Uh-huh.
for the TT racing,
Okay.
motorcycle racing, which will
Yes.
be awesome. So I'm a big sports guy. So I'm hoping to go to a couple of soccer or football matches
Yeah.
while we're there. And we were supposed to go to the World Cup. That didn't work out. It's always been part of the plan, but it just the handling of the ticketing process was just it was very last second. It was a pain. It just wasn't fun. So we're not going to go to Russia, but I think the alternative to that is being able to watch the World Cup games
Yeah.
in European bars. That I'm so excited about.
I
that.
can imagine. Yeah.
That's probably going to be more as much fun as going to the game. And so we're gonna jump around a bit, hopefully see some friends, and then from there, then we'll go back towards the end of the summer, come back to Asia, start at Japan, and work our way down to some of the Southeast Asian countries where we haven't been to. Hopefully, go to China and Taiwan and Cambodia, and then end the trip doing Australia and New Zealand.
I think you've made like 100% of the audience very jealous at this moment with all the stuff that's
Hey,
still ahead.
Chris, we know we're living a dream. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's we're reminded daily. We don't take any of it for granted, but we absolutely know that we are living a dream, and we tell each other often that how amazing this is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right.
And you're I mean this again you're not special in terms of like anybody could do this, right? Put your mind to it and you can do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I think that we're lucky in a sense that I was in a job where when you're in commission-based jobs, that there's no ceiling. So I think that's what made us different. That you can, if you put your mind to something and you can earn a certain amount, whether you're taking on other jobs or doing certain things, and then you just if you make it a goal, you write it down as a goal, and you just work to achieve it. It's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Even if ours is 2.5 years. If somebody else decided that, we just had a friend recently that she left her job for 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's I think it's whatever suits the person, because some people, like I talk to my brother and stuff, he wouldn't want to do this. He thinks we're crazy. So it's not for everybody. We understand that.
No, it might not be for everyone, but if you want to, you can. And there's a lot of restrictions, I guess, in our minds that the roadblocks that are perception, that are in any case true, but you can actually overcome these as well and actually do what you guys are doing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. We're about 30 minutes, a little bit over 30 minutes in our conversation. And I tend to limit them. I try to limit my interviews to about 30 minutes. So my last 2 questions, if I may, Matt, is but last question is, can you give us 3 tips to become more culturally competent, please?
Yes, I think the first one would be to be open. What I mean by that is you don't have to do like with something that we're doing in order to get a culturally rich experience. You don't have to travel to exotic locations to do something like that. You can, if you get involved in your local communities. I think globally, a lot of communities now are melting pots, and if your own community is not a melting pot, within a driving distance, you can get into a culturally rich environment that you can push yourself. I think that when I was in my sales position at my company, we had an Indian community that I worked with. So part of that, I would go to their homes. I would ask them and say, hey, I know it's Diwali, or I know it's a celebration. Can I swing by your house and see what's going on? So I would put myself in those situations where I can go see it. And you'd be surprised. People want to share. So if you ask them, they really want to share so you can create that connection. I did similar around the cricket, World Cup cricket. I ended up trying my damnedest to understand cricket so I can have those conversations with the Indian community because it's so important to them. So
Did
I think
you in the end understand this?
I understood it enough to know like if a team was going to win or not.
Okay.
And what they were doing to win it. I understand like the how they got 6 points, 4 points. I understand how to do all that.
Yeah.
It's complex, and it's a lot of role. We have American baseball, and they're similar in ways, but way different as well. So it's But I think in the end, I mean, and you can go to local parks that are in different places within your community to get exposed to different cultures, and then just talk to people there. I think there's different ways that you can be open to experiences. Yes, for 3. I think the other thing is I talked about is learn to ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to people that you might be different than, and just ask them questions about, because as you're showing that your interest into what they're involved with, they'll be happy to tell you and explain to you what they're doing. And then I think the third one is when you're traveling, put down your phone and take out your headphones. I think that if we go on a lot of long walks, my wife and I, as we travel, and you just want to just be able to hear things and see things and be present in the moment instead of always doing something else where it's going to take away from that scenario. Right. You're sitting in a restaurant or you're going on a walk. So just to be present when you're on a bus or anything, when you travel, and even if you're traveling in your own community, I would just say be present more and get off the phone. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds good. Excellent tips. Thank you very much for that. If people want to get in touch with you and follow you, how can they do that?
PassportJoy.com, just as it sounds, PassportJoy.com. It has everything there. It has our travel tips, our different blog posts of experiences that we're going through, and a link to the podcast that we're doing to kind of have an audible track of it.
Yeah, I checked that out. It looks really good. It's a really professional site, by the way.
Thank you.
Compliments for that.
Oh, thanks. That's all me.
That's all you. Okay, well, good. Yeah.
I would. No, it's funny because all those years selling technology, I didn't really know much about like the nuts and bolts and how to get into code and stuff. Right. So over the last couple of years, I've taught myself how to do that. So thank you. I appreciate that. It
looks really good. Very professional. Thanks so much. Thanks, Matt, very much for coming on board. Enjoy your time in Vietnam. Onward to Hong Kong, and then on your way to Europe. Eventually, we might bump into each other at a soccer match. Who knows?
Absolutely.
All right. You'll take care, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.